Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to today's webinar, Challenges in the Age of Financial Inclusion. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's webinar. We have taken a screenshot of an example of attendee interface. You should see something that looks like this on your own computer desktop in the upper right corner. You are listening in using your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You will have the opportunity to submit the text questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them during the question and answer session at the end of today's presentation. Now, I wanted to take a few minutes of your time and would like to introduce about Techwave before we move into the webinar. Techwave is a globally trusted strategic partner that provides end-to-end IT services and solutions through co-innovation and thought leadership by leveraging industry's best practices. We are headquartered in Exton, Pennsylvania, USA. Our agile and collaborative approach makes us the right-sized partner in the industry. We are ranked number 9 among its fastest growing companies in the region by Philadelphia Business Journal and ranked number 15 in IT services domain in USA by Inc. 500. And we are also ISO certified company. How we are different? So we have a long-standing clients and our client retention rate is 100% and we are very proud of it. We recruit from leading engineering and business schools with higher mix of experienced professionals. Domain knowledge is our focus. And we are now spread globally with a strong presence in North America, Asia Pacific, Europe, Middle East, and South Africa, helping more than 100 satisfied clients with our value-added services. And we have strong alliances with our leading software vendors to deliver most innovative and market-ready solutions. We have also been featured in a lot of magazines like Forbes, Business Journals, Inc. 500, and so on and so forth. So here is an overview of our services. We are providing end-to-end services and solutions in application development, EPM, engineering services, infrastructure management, big data, analytics, CRM, EIM, ERP, and so on and so forth. So today we would be covering a topic from strategy consulting, that is challenges in the age of financial inclusion. So the webinar aims to provide a discussion on how technologies like CRM and BPM can streamline experiences for bank staff and consumers. The speaker would also examine what are the key challenges facing by global financial services organizations as customers become more mobile unique. At the end of today's presentation, you will be knowing the cost-effective delivery model for financial inclusion through technology tools and to manage how to manage end-to-end business process to onboard new customers for financial inclusion with seamless integration with core banking solutions, and how to use technology to address challenges while preparing for future changes. Now, I would like to introduce today's presenters. You will be hearing a presentation from Matt Tharp, Chief Evangelist at BPM Online, a global leader in CRM and BPM technologies, and Sundar Kasturirangan, Head of CRM and Financial Service Practice in Techwave. And Matt is a 3 times co-founder with over 12 years of vast experience in creating disruptive technology to improve CRM and customer engagement. And Sundar has over 30 years of experience in developing and implementation of solutions and banking and financial services industry. And I am Priyanka Sanduri, and I'm marketing manager at Techwave. I'll be taking care of our marketing activities at Techwave, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar, and I'll be taking the questions which are submitted during today's session, and I'll be posing the questions to today's speakers and moderating for today's webinar. Now I would like to hand it over to today's speakers to introduce themselves and get started with today's webinar.
Thank you, Priyanka. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks everybody for joining. Looking forward to going through the presentation and helping you understand some of the challenges that are facing financial institutions, globally as well as in India with the financial inclusion. So excited to be here. Sundar?
Yeah, I'm excited to be here as part of this presentation. So even though Matt will be talking more on the CRM technology, bandwidth, and other stuff, I'll be more talking about on the financial inclusions and how those technologies can be applied in the Indian scenarios. And we want to make this session more interactive and interesting so that your key takeaways are met out of this presentation. Thank you.
So I'll start with a little bit of background on BPM Online. So we are a global company. As Priyanka mentioned, we're a global leader in both CRM and BPM technologies with offices in over 7 locations worldwide. We've also developed an extensive partner network to make sure that we always have experienced hands-on in the markets where our customers are located. So we're headquartered in Boston, but we are really proud of our global presence and excited about our growth. We've actually been recognized extensively by leading analysts like Gartner, who've recognized us in all of the major CRM categories for like Salesforce automation, CRM lead management, and the customer engagement center. So sales, marketing, and service, we are in the magic quadrants of Gartner's analysis. But we've also been recognized by other analyst firms like Forrester, who've actually placed us in the leader category for CRM. And as you can see here, we're in great company, but we're really proud of our leadership here because we do offer a unique position, and that unique position's really been recognized not only by Forrester and Gartner extensively, by a number of global awards that we've received, especially in the CRM category. Now, we have extensive experience in financial services customers, so a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is going to provide some experience or some exposure to what's happening globally with financial companies. I know that in India there's some unique challenges, but I think what's going to be great today is to talk about what we've learned from our experience working with financial organizations throughout Europe and the rest of the world, and how that compares and how that can set the stage for what's coming in India as well. So Sundar, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about some of the specific challenges that are facing the Indian market. So if you wanted to take over here, and then I'll jump back in a few slides.
Yeah. Thanks, Mac. Particularly in India, the financial inclusion is one of the major challenges we are facing, where a lot of government initiatives are taking and many of the bank institutions are facing a lot of challenges. The technology impediments is one of the major stuff where we have to go and operate in some of the remote areas and urban areas, and where we have to take care of the diverse customer needs. So various technologies, banks are very advanced in the latest technology where they're implemented core banking solutions and all this stuff. Plus on the field, the sales force of the banks and the agents of the banks and various other stakeholders are facing quite a lot of challenges. Where I think your technological solutions, whatever you're going to cover as part of this session, we need to see how they can be adopted and how they can be leveraged for meeting the financial inclusion challenges. Yes, Matt?
Yeah, so there's a number of key challenges that we've seen here. So for example, there's some critical focus areas for technology. Customer interfaces and channels are growing. There's a need for customer identification. Banking products and core platforms. These are, according to PwC, these are at least half or more of the organizations that were polled. These are the key areas of innovation that need to be addressed. Now, banking of the past, as we know, is typically done in these legacy systems. They were awkward. They were typically built out like basic forms, and the users, the end users, were required to follow their processes in these very strict and regimented practices. And unfortunately, these were often done in various systems. So core banking might be separate from the lending process. The lending process might be separate from CRM. And so, end users in the banking environment were forced to do what we call the swivel seat approach, which is where they might have to have multiple screens viewing multiple different applications to try to be effective and efficient. And the reality is that this is changing. Banks are being forced to try to meet client expectations, which have changed dramatically over the last 10 years. If you think about the kinds of applications that consumers worldwide are engaging with on a daily basis in their lives, they have things like one-click checkout in their shopping process, which delivers, within a small number of days, or in some cases hours now, the products that they've required or requested. And when you start to think about how these applications are changing the experience and exposing the operation and the transparency of what's going on, you can see now that it's no longer acceptable to a client to walk out their door, and wait for someone to arrive. They have the ability with their smartphone to just whip out their phone, click a couple of times, and the transportation will arrive. And so if you start thinking about how these things go together, it's not only, this immediate gratification and this on-demand service. It's clear transparency into what's happening in the operation. There's exposure to how long the customer might need to wait. We see throughout the world, but definitely in things like shopping and media, we see more and more personalized content. And of course, we all know the challenges that we're facing as organizations to try to keep up with the technology that's becoming more and more omni-channel. But yet, the customer expectation is that this is a more and more unified experience. Consumers don't think about, well, I'm interacting on my phone, so that's somehow different than if I do it from my desktop computer or if I go into a branch. They see these things as an interaction with a brand that should all be unified and connected regardless of the channel. And so client expectations, customer expectations have changed. And so this pressure has changed the demand for banking especially. Banks realize that that they need to accommodate this kind of customer expectation. And what's happening is they realize that it's not enough to just offer channels. They need to become more and more digital. And so there are concepts that are emerging, banks that are emerging worldwide, that are called digital banks. And they are mobile-centric. They are social. They embrace social network communication. They embrace social technologies. They put money management at the heart of what they do, but ultimately it's about empowering the consumer to work in a way that is preferred by them. And when you think about what's happening, this new banking movement is creating, for example, millions of customers just in the last few years, in the last 9 years for Jibin Bank. For Hello Bank in Europe, we're talking about 2.4 million users just in the last 4 years alone. And actually, these numbers should probably be updated because this was as of 2016. And so, even in a bank like Number 26, which is a very focused digital bank, they've been able to attract, hundreds of thousands of users, almost 200,000 users, just within 18 months. And so the speed at which this disruption is happening is moving faster and faster. And we're seeing that it's because they're able to attract consumers to interact and to work the way that the way they prefer, but also in the way that makes the most sense for them. And that's why clients are choosing digital banks. That's why banks are moving digital. It's because of this unique experience. The more personalized it feels to the end consumer, the more it feels like it's their bank. And so what we find is that these digital channels are representing best practices in a number of different areas. Even large-scale banks like Bank of America here in the US have started to do things like enable consumers to book appointments directly from the desktop or the mobile app. This is a great way to leverage a digital channel in a way that empowers the consumer and allows them that choice and that transparency, and puts them in control of that experience, which is really what they're ultimately looking for. We've seen a lot of digital banks and even just standard banks moving towards things like customer value or value-based apps, things that provide value experiences to the consumer. They give them access to third-party services and offerings that might not directly provide any value to the bank, but definitely provide a resource to the consumer. And by doing that, it shows the consumer that the bank cares about them, not just about their own profits. And when you think about even things like showing up in the bank and getting a queue, a concierge tool to allow you to potentially see what the wait times are, see where you are in the queue, and access while you wait knowledge-based items and knowledge-based information, this is a fantastic way to leverage technology to provide a digital experience that empowers and adds value to the end user while ultimately transforming the way the user thinks about the bank environment. We see this as extending in some really interesting ways to some digital channels that we're all probably still getting accustomed to, things like an Apple Watch or a smartwatch. We find that these technologies are allowing consumers to be alerted when they need to find an ATM or make a payment in store. These are things that are now not only moving just to the smartphone, but are even moving to the connected smart devices. And so other organizations like OCBC Bank in Singapore are providing additional resources to help consumers manage their own financial decisions. And so you can start to see things like sending, paying a bill, splitting a bill, having some flexibility to how you manage your money. These are the kinds of things that are being leveraged in the digital universe. And so what we've experienced in all of this is that there are some key ingredients to an optimal customer journey. You want to make sure that the consumer has their preferred communication channel at the preferred time. Now, to be clear about this isn't a specific channel. This isn't like, I'm not encouraging everyone to run out and build a smartphone app. But the reality is that smartphones, SMS on feature phones, email, even just applications on the web or on the desktop, these are all things that consumers are expecting. So there is no one preferred channel. You want to make sure you're on their preferred channel and available at their preferred time. You want to make that their experience easy and convenient. One of the great things about providing technology in a distributed fashion like this is that it makes access to the information, it makes access to the actions easier and more convenient for the consumer. And so it reduces the burden of any one particular channel, which is great. It also minimizes the time spent at the branch. We all know that the branch is the most expensive resource. So one of the key things of this distributed digital environment is to move that experience out of the branch as often as possible and put it in the hands of the consumer. And you want to make sure that this multi-channel experience is unified in a way that doesn't duplicate information at each stage of the interaction. And this is critical. When we talk about a multi-channel universe for consumers, their expectation is that that each one of these channels, as I said earlier, is a part of the same experience. And that means redundancies and duplications, people asking the same questions. Those are things that signal to the consumer that this particular organization maybe doesn't have its act together and that they might look elsewhere. And so, these are really the key ingredients of an optimum customer journey. So here's some really interesting statistics around banking channels to validate this. So it used to be that the branch was the primary method of interacting, but as you can see now, that has shifted to online banking. 70% of the sort of people in the ages of 35 to 39 consider this to be their routine interaction point. Now, in age groups that are 65 and older, the branch is still the king with 61% of the interactions. But, pardon me, these are typically low-value, routine interactions that in other generations and in other age demographics are often done in technological forms. Now, for the younger crowd, the 18 to 24-year-olds, the ATM is king. ATM is a great example of the first wave of sort of distributed commerce for banking, and you can definitely see this as 54% of the 18 to 24-year-olds use ATMs as their primary interaction channel. What's really interesting though is when you think about online banking, you see that 70% number, but with that same age demographic, 38% are managing their interactions, all interactions, through mobile banking. And so we're definitely seeing this trend shift to this multi-channel environment where, as I mentioned, there is no one specific channel that wins all things. And so this obviously means puts a lot of pressure on a banking technology infrastructure. The good news is that as the banking infrastructure shifts and you start to do more in the ATM, you start to do more in the digital universe, it does reduce the pressure on the branch, which we can see from an average cost per visit perspective is 100 times higher than the next channel. And so, if you think about the average cost of a branch network versus, all of the digital costs combined, by reducing this burden on branches, you're actually increasing the operating revenue that the bank can leverage to improve the experience. So you can think about each one of those digital initiatives as an investment in the future. Now, just to start to talk about the technology a little bit more here, when you think about omnichannel banking, Forrester did a great job of sort of breaking this out and identifying that an omnichannel banking solution needs to be more than just the ability to deliver unique channels. As we see here, traditionally data replication ends up creating these what they call data islands or channel islands. So in this example, you have a data set that supports your core banking technology, which drives ATMs and branches. But then you have a whole other set of data that you have to replicate to support your call center applications, like your phone and your call center and your potentially your front desks. Now, when you start to think about your web app, your mobile app, smartphone initiatives, this ends up creating an additional data set that has to be replicated that can power these two interaction points. So what ends up happening is you get this, you have all of these legacy systems that need their own databases, that need to have replicated data across them. And what ends up happening is this becomes costly and expensive, and moreover, does not deliver a unified multi-channel experience that the consumer is expecting. And so if you're really trying to think about that prior slide, how do I reduce that overall cost burden that's happening in my branch environment by investing in digital channels? The way to do that, according to Forrester, and we definitely would agree with that, is to make sure that you're creating business application layers and omnichannel banking layers that can power all of these interaction points directly. And we want to reduce that number of data replication points so you have a much more unified and streamlined layer of application technology that's driving the consumer experience. This is really what we would consider to be the ideal scenario when you start to think about how you make this digital transformation, or in the event that you're already starting this digital transformation, how you bring it all together. Now, financial inclusion, Sundar, I'd love it if you wanted to jump in here and reference this, but we know that this is a big initiative that's changing the face of banking in India. So Sundar, yeah. I'll let you take the floor here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matt, for a very interesting technological update on what is happening in the industry, in particular in the banking industry worldwide. But the challenges in India, as I defined earlier, is very unique. It is called financial inclusion, and it is an initiative for the Government of India and the Reserve Bank of India, and all the mainstream institutions are participants in this. And what do you mean by financial inclusion? It is a process of ensuring access to appropriate financial products and services needed by all sections of the society in general, and vulnerable groups such as weaker sections and low-income groups in particular at an affordable cost in a fair and transparent manner by mainstream institutional players. Matt, when you discuss about these various technological tools, what we had, just be back on the same presentation, same slide. When you discuss about that, all those technological tools, and those tools we talked widely about how those technology tools can help from the banking side as well as from the customer side. But here in financial inclusion, the challenges are going to be what kind of tools can be provided by the banks to the field engineers, to the agents, and all the stakeholders, so that they can provide better services to the vulnerable groups in the society. So it means the customer is not going to be techno savvy, whereas the bank has to be techno savvy to provide the most cost-effective services to the customers. So in this process, Matt, we are going to have a major challenge is in the business process, where multiple stakeholders, where the transactions flows through various streams, both digital as well as conventional methodology, and how these can be integrated, put together, and how we can deliver a cost-effective delivery model to the end customers. So that is the kind of a topic which we are going to discuss, take a deep dive in today's session.
Thanks, Sundar.
Yeah, particularly in financial inclusion trends in India, if you just look at it, 65, just over 65% of the bank branches are functioning from rural and semi-urban area. Just over 58% households avail banking services, and less than 10% of the adults borrow from the formal financial institutions. Okay, and this gives a clear picture for what is kind of more work to be done in India and what volume of work to be done in India. So how the technology need to play a major role here. What is happening in India? Banks so far under the Reserve Bank of India guidance and various initiatives, whatever the government and banks together they have taken, they opened around 27.97 crore accounts and mobilized deposits 63,885 crores and issued 12 crores insurance policies to all the weaker sections of the society. And government has also, after these accounts have been opened, for all the government schemes, they're able to transfer the funds directly to those accounts. And government is pushing inclusion through Aadhaar, Jandan, and other various other mechanisms, which is enabling the bank to open the accounts much more faster than what they used to do before. Next slide, Matt. Hello.
Yes, I've clicked. I think there may be a delay.
Yeah.
Do you see it now?
So yeah, I'm able to see.
Okay,
now the focus area for the financial inclusion today for the banks as well as for the government is 25% of the new branches, whatever the banks are going to open, they are going to open it in unbanked rural areas. And they're going to extend service to the entire geography of India through sub-service and comprising 1,000 to 1,500 households. Here, lot of subcontracting agents are going to be involved. So bank have to deal with multiple agents to deal with those accounts. And over 75,000 villages with population above 2,000 will be covered through the banking facility. And opening of accounts with Aadhaar numbers for beneficiaries under the direct banking bank transfer schemes. And they'll also be provided with electronic payments through RuPay cards, and they'll be provided with mobile banking facility using a very simple GSM based phones.
Yeah, that's a significant challenge, Sundar. I think when you think about what the rest of the world is dealing with, and you realize where things are headed, but you recognize that India has some significant hurdles to overcome first, which is to adopt this financial inclusion and get banks out into these rural areas, and to be able to do it with existing technologies. You definitely see that while this mobile digital age of transformation is coming, first things first, India needs to deal with this ability to get banking into these rural areas using initially just simple technologies and people on the ground.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So what we've done here is we've taken what we mentioned earlier as kind of our unique customer journey, and we've actually tried to map out here what we think is a representative example of that customer journey in the age of financial inclusion. Now, it looks a little bit different, but I think we can learn a lot from the things that we're seeing coming down the technology pipeline about mobility. And actually, that's one of the key things that while the actual ways and methods that you might be dealing with mobility in India in the age of financial inclusion, I think the concepts are very similar. And so I'll go through this, and Sundar, if you wouldn't mind, we'll have you guys jump in and kind of talk about this a little bit as we go, but I'll kick off the journey here. It starts where you essentially have to identify your target population in these rural areas, and you need to identify who it is that you're going to reach out to and who needs to be included in this process. Once you've targeted the population, you need to gather that contact data and then put that in the hand of field agents so that they can get out there and schedule a visit face-to-face. Now, it's at this point, this visit scheduling, where you probably begin to see this mobilization occur. Would you agree with that, Sundar?
Yeah, here one challenge I have, Matt, in terms of getting the contact data is for financial inclusion expected to be very huge because they have to contact various customers and various rural areas. They go with various households. They have to collect some data from the government bodies. So how do you think it can be handled with the current technology that is available?
Yeah, I mean, gathering, especially from multiple sources and streamlining your contact data, this is something that we deal with in every industry. This is extremely challenging. That's one of the reasons why we've focused so much on creating a single view of the customer throughout the CRM environment. It actually allows you to pull in data from any number of sources and make that data available to any user in the system who has access, so that they know everything, they have at a glance everything they need to know about that customer when they go to talk to them.
Yeah. See, one more challenge we talked about in terms of visit schedule. See, when there is one side, we are having challenge of huge contact data. Other side, there are going to be various agents going to be on the field. It could be a real challenge for the head office or any other bank who are built central coordinating body to channelize the agents to right contacts, ensure that they're meeting the objective. So how do you think the visit schedule for the agents can be prepared, how it can be communicated to the agents, and how it can be tracked?
So there's a number of different ways that we've seen people do this, but I think the one that I'm the most excited about is, in our CRM environment, we actually provide, because it's because it can be in the cloud or on premise, we actually provide a mobile access point. So you can have a mobile application that pulls in not only all of your contact data, but actually provides an ability to check in on the process and report back to the home office, where you are in the process, what steps have been completed. It allows you to update the information, and even if you're offline, like let's say you're in an environment where you're doing all of this work offline, once you come back and you get connected to the network, all of that updated data gets uploaded and then gets distributed out to all the appropriate sources. So, we find that that's probably, a specific field capability in our application is something that we've invested in. There's a lot of, outside sales, pharmaceutical sales, for example, where they have these mobile field agents, and we would expect that a similar set of functionality would be really valuable here.
That's exciting, Matt.
Matt, I have a question here. Agents in the field may not have smartphones and may have only basic mobile phones. So, how they can update the status of their visit? Can they use SMS?
Yeah, they can use SMS. They would have, in some cases, less functionality available, but you could do some things that could be really interesting where if you passed in the person's name, some identifying information, and possibly the latest step or the latest update, we found that the technology that's available in applications like BPM Online can actually parse out all of the key details and update the CRM accordingly. So that's an example where you don't necessarily have to have a smartphone. Even if you just wanted to use SMS on a feature phone, you could still push those updates back to the core CRM system.
Okay. Okay.
And that allows, as you're going back to the journey here, this next step, which I think is a vital one when you're dealing with something like financial inclusion. You're talking about the first major wave of bringing an audience into a banking environment, and so that ability to meet them face to face, create a relationship, and educate them is vital. But banks are probably going to be concerned about the fact that they have to capture the information. And so how do we do that in such a way that we don't lose the data? If you've ever worked in a mobile sales force or in a mobile sales environment, those first 15 minutes after an interaction with a customer are the most valuable at capturing your notes and your thoughts and your ideas. And so, that was a great question, Priyanka, but that ability to update the status of that contact information, at least to trigger where you are in the process, is a great one if you can do that using, a tablet or smartphone. But even if you just do something like SMS, that's a great way to update the contact information and make sure that the information gets back to the data center. And that means this next step is critical. You don't have to necessarily duplicate work because you can do a data quality check and capture all of the account opening information in the forms. And so, you can make sure that these things get passed into the process directly, because then the branch can review and approve. And so, before I move on, this is one of the reasons why the financial organizations we work with are so excited about our technology. Not to go too much down the technology path here, but by having things like BPM, which is business process management, it allows you to lay out a flow like this or a process and be very specific to make sure that the agents, the field agents, can update certain steps in the process, but maybe at the approval step, the branch staff is required to do that work. And so you can set up the process to do this in such a way that it's mapping to what the consumer needs, but it's also giving the bank what they need at every step of the way. And then once everything's been updated in the CRM, all of that data can be uploaded into the core banking system, and now everything is updated. The core banking system can have all of the account information, and you can dispatch the things like the RuPay cards to customers, the things that they're going to need to be able to do their banking on an ongoing basis. So you can see this customer journey map definitely involves some process, some technology, and a number of things working together to make sure you're meeting customer expectations, but also you're meeting this financial inclusion requirement.
Yeah. Good.
Go ahead, Sundar.
Yeah. Matt, one question here: how BPM Online can be used to capture account opening and KYC data, and how do you validate and upload the data to the core banking solution? Because the interface formats will be different, and there will be integration challenges. How do you think we can get over it?
Yeah, the good news is there are a lot of different tools out there that are available that we've already worked with and we've already integrated with. And so we can do things a variety of different ways. We can use APIs as a method of moving data from the CRM application into the core banking system. This integration would be seamless, and it would allow the two technologies to talk to each other on an ongoing and real-time basis. So as soon as data gets updated in the CRM, it could get pushed to the core banking system. We highly recommend an approach like this because it also means that you can move data from the core banking system into the CRM. So as we'll see, later in the presentation, this informs things like loan rates. This informs offers and packages and things that are available to customers in terms of products. And so having a two-way integration through an API is a fantastic method of making sure core banking and CRM are connected. We've also seen, let's say an organization has a more legacy core banking system. Maybe it's not built on top of APIs. We can use things like ETL connectors, which move data from one system to another in in a less real-time basis, but that it can move in a fairly rapid rate. And so whether it's an API which provides a live data path, a two-way data path to and from your core banking to the CRM, or whether you're using an ETL tool, which is essentially a data migration tool to move from one system to another, there are a number of different ways to make that happen. And BPM Online does this all the time with banks around the world.
Thanks, Matt.
Certainly.
Yep. Now we can actually go for the questions which we received into this session. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Sundar. We are now going to begin the answering the questions submitted during today's presentation. As a reminder, you can still submit the questions through the questions pane in your control panel. So, Matt and Sundar, here's the first question we have received from Sanket. So, how does financial inclusion relate to the Sustainable Development Goals?
See, the financial inclusion, sustainable development growth, what happens is, until unless we bring up the weaker sections of the society, and they are part of the financial transactions where they are part of the financial system. So all the development work, whatever that government is bringing and all the other organizations are doing it in India is not going to be fruitful. So for a sustainable growth of the country, financial inclusion is one of the important aspects.
Okay, perfect. And we have other questions from the same person that how to approach the unserved and underserved customers like people?
See, this is what we discussed earlier also, the unserved and unsuccessful, unpenetrated market. There are various agents and various schemes which Reserve Bank of India and many of the banks have already started doing it, and where they identified some of the third-party groups and third-party agencies where they are being utilized to penetrate this particular kind of a market. So what we are discussing today is how to enable those agents on the field with the technology so that they can reach the customers and capture the information and feedback those information back to the core banking system.
Okay, okay, perfect. And other question is that I think we are seeing questions over here. So, under what conditions do on ramps lead to deeper inclusion?
Can you repeat that
You
question,
want me to?
Priyanka?
Yes. Under what conditions do on ramps lead to deeper inclusion?
On ramp.
Yeah, on ramps.
Okay. See, on ramp in a sense, what we are trying to say is the deeper inclusion is how the entire customers are being brought into the mainstream. And not only that, we are just going to open the account and leave them as it is. We also need to give them the products so that they are sustained in the banking system or sustained in the financial inclusion system. Because bank as of today, they cannot go and market all the products what is they have to the customers. They need to really understand the customer need and position the products accordingly, for which we need technologies like BPM Online or CRM tools we have.
Okay, okay, perfect. We have other question received from Srinivas Challa. He has a question. I have a field staff where they will be working in a remote location and where there is no internet connectivity. In such a situations, how can I capture the data that I was collected in the field?
Matt has already covered this when they were discussing the process, where they'll be provided with mobile app and the application mobile devices or tablet can be used, and where they are also be provided with offline operation, where even there is no internet connectivity, they can still go and do the operation, and when internet connectivity is available, they can upload the data.
Okay, okay. We have the other question received from Srinivas Kalyan. Does BPM Online have a provision to execute email campaigns? Does it need a third-party email service integration, or can this platform be plugged into existing enterprise mail server?
Thanks for the question. So we do have the ability to create and execute email campaigns. We actually have a full marketing automation lead management suite as a part of BPM Online. It does include a third-party email integration. So out of the box, we actually provide that functionality. So you don't have to go out and have another application. We can manage all of that through BPM Online. However, if you wanted to integrate it with an enterprise mail server, there are some capabilities to do that. Unfortunately, that also comes with a series of limitations. So we typically recommend that you just use our existing email capabilities to manage any kind of marketing campaign execution that you're trying to do.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Matt. So other question received from other attendees that can BPM Online be accessed by bank officials, field agents, and data center operators?
Yes, anyone that you want to provide access to can have access to BPM Online. In fact, you can actually tailor that access to each individual set of users or roles. So for example, you might have a set of field agents that can see all of the contact details and can interact with the first two steps in a process, but anything that requires bank approval or branch staff or someone like that, for example, they might not have access to manipulate that data. Whereas, branch staff might be able to see all the contact details, but maybe their only ability is to manipulate things like product offerings or process approval steps. So anybody who you want to provide access to the system can have access, and then you can tailor that access depending on their role.
So I would like to add a few more points here to Matt, where this entire application can be hosted either in the cloud environment or on on-premises environment, where it is available through internet. So it can be accessed from anywhere.
Okay.
And from any
Perfect.
devices.
Okay, okay. We have received other question from Srinivas Challa again. Can I integrate my existing database with the BPM Online?
No, absolutely. Yeah, we would recommend that you do. You definitely want to make the process of moving over to a new CRM as seamless as possible for your staff, and you certainly don't want to have any data loss or require that they have to use two systems for a period of time. So you definitely want to migrate your current data over. That's definitely the best way to get up and running on a new system like BPM Online.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Other question is that is it possible to build end-to-end business process in BPM Online?
I'm sorry, if that was for me, I didn't hear the question. The audio was breaking up. Can you repeat?
Yeah, I'll just repeat the question once again. Is it possible to build end-to-end business process in BPM Online?
Absolutely. This is one of our unique positions in the CRM space. BPM Online is actually built on a full-fledged BPM engine, which powers processes from marketing, sales, service, all the way through to custom applications. And so the entire, you can build a process that could span the entire customer journey. Because that is built through standard BPM notation, so industry standard notation, it means that if you have a team of business analysts that are familiar with writing business processes, they could actually create an end-to-end process in very little time, and that process could immediately be executed using the application. So having CRM and BPM built together in a single application makes some phenomenal opportunities for end-to-end process management.
Okay, thanks, Matt. As a reminder, you can still submit the questions through questions pane in your attendee control panel. So Matt and Sundar, we have a last question for the day. So what kind of data, what kind of dashboards and analytic report can be generated?
So I'll definitely show a few examples of this in the next slides after we finish the first round of Q&A, and I'll go through and highlight a number of different capabilities in our application. But I would say that you could be measuring any number of different things from personnel productivity and effectiveness to customer financial inclusion penetration, to process capability, like process conversion rates and how well you're doing throughout the various processes that you have deployed. So really, as long as the data set is accessible, you could build a report to visualize the data in BPM Online.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Matt. Thanks, Sundar. So now I think I'll hand it over to you. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. Now we are going to hand it back to Matt to highlight the BPM Online application and how it can help a financial service organization handle digital transformation and create a platform for future changes. Matt, over to you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm excited to participate, and I'll be respectful of everyone's time here and try to get through everything with the time we have left. BPM Online has built out a suite of financial services capabilities that really cover the end-to-end process. So everything from marketing, being able to do multi-channel marketing and deliver demand generation to your market, to managing sales. For example, helping manage the end-to-end sales process of financial products and services to corporate clients, to managing the customer journey piece, which is sort of back and front office bank management for contact centers and branch personnel, and then of course lending processes. And all of these things are both managed through a business process as well as through a workflow process in the UI. And I'm going to show you quite a bit about that here next. So I'll start with the customer journey piece. We provide a one-stop shop for banking services. As you can see here, this allows you to pull up contact information on individuals, whether that's in person or by phone, and have access to all of the information at a glance. How many products they currently use, what kind of offers you might want to make, information like birthday information, All of this is available in a single place, as well as omnichannel communications. So, we've done everything we can to try to build in functionality around, calls and email and SMS, so that your end users in the branch or in your contact center all have a single interface to manage. And so you can see that here. We use our business processes to power the UI to do consulting and transactions in a contact center environment. So giving the agents a desktop that allows them to see all of the incoming requests in their queue, as well as the ability to communicate with internal personnel to get questions answered. And again, all of that is managed by best practice-based processes for things like loan origination, deposit, account, transaction management. And whether you want to start with our best practices and modify them to fit your needs, or whether you want to start with your own process from scratch, all of that is done in a very easy to use visual designer tool that is based on that standard notation that I mentioned before. Now, we also have the ability to do things like case management that allow you to manage incoming case requests, self-service or knowledge base. This can actually be externally facing to your customers or internally facing to your staff. This is a phenomenal tool to make sure you're standardizing information. Product management. So this is built into our application. We find that most of our banking customers use this, and that allows them to have all of the products in a single repository inside the CRM so that they can call this information up rapidly and simply and use the system to potentially suggest products that might come next. And that even means things like understanding the interest rates, minimum, maximums on the amount, the terms, and things like this. And all of this can be interacted with as a part of the loan or bank management processes. To those that ask the question about dashboarding and reporting capabilities, you can see this here, whether that's call performance or service efficiency. All of that is accessible on a weekly dashboard or a daily dashboard, and you can configure this to visualize the data in a number of different ways. So that was the customer journey experience piece. Next, I'm going to talk about the lending process. And so you're going to see some similar things. For example, the product capability allows you to have all of your loan origination processes, all of your loan products in a single location. And as you're going through a process and assisting a client for the optimal loan product, you can actually pull up screens that give you all the parameters and allow you to manipulate those parameters to see in real time exactly what the options might be for that customer. This allows you to do lending application processing, and that would follow your standard process in your organization. You could manage loan applications from agents and partners, and do things like scoring. We know that scoring is a critical piece when you're evaluating loans, and we can either do this in the application using built-in scoring rules that are all configurable and customizable, or we can actually connect to third-party scoring tools. We know this is very common when you're pulling in things like FICO scores in the US, and we know globally there are a variety of different methods of scoring applicants and loans, and so all of those things can get pulled in and be a part of the process. All of the assets of an individual can be saved and made as a part of it. So if you're managing loan paperwork or monitoring assets or what have you, all of that's available and visualized in the application, including things like contracts and, again, dashboard, the ability to report all of that. So application statuses, pipeline reports, sales performance or agent performance, all of that can be reported in the application. We do support, business-to-business banking processes as well. So analyzing cost-benefit analysis, actually looking at and mapping out holding companies and affiliate relationships and having that be a part of the account record. And then using things like pre-configured processes for corporate customers to manage customer acquisition or customer processing. And again, we have these pre-configured processes to make some of the standards simple to deploy and easy to customize. A lot of times you can use our best practice-based processes that come in our library, and you can get 80% of what you need, and then you can spend your energy modifying the last 20% of your process as opposed to trying to build and implement an entire process from scratch. Within the application, especially when you're thinking about businesses, you can do customer segmentation. You can do segmentation on any data element. And you can create dynamic segments so that if the consumer information or business information changes, the segments will update automatically. This is great when you're trying to do a product segment matrix and do a comparison of what products might be offered for a particular segment. You can do customer weight ranking, life cycle management, and again, you can look at bank rep efficiency on things like invoice payments and upcoming payments and so on. So really everything you need to manage a corporate banking environment. And last, I think this is a great one to talk about for those that had questions about the marketing suite. So, BPM Online as a CRM seamlessly connects marketing, sales, service, contact center operations, and not only are they all connected on a single database, but they all use a single 360-degree view of the customer. And so when you're trying to look at lead management, you're trying to look at distribution of sources, you're trying to understand, your marketing activities, BPM Online Marketing gives you everything you need to essentially design, deploy, and measure campaigns. You can also do landing page management. This is great for tracking and setting up lead information and trying to gather, all of the traditional, landing page marketing activities that you might want to do, including the ability to visually lay out a campaign workflow. So just like all of our standard BPM process tools, we have built BPM directly into our campaigns and allow you to use a similar visual layout and a flow style to map out your marketing campaign. And of course, no campaign is complete without the ability to measure it. And you can see that here. Everything you need to identify your performance, whether that's opens and clicks or unsubscribes or conversions, all of that can be tracked and mapped into the email marketing capability. And we definitely recommend use our very easy to use WYSIWYG content designer. It allows you to pull in content blocks that are pre-configured from the left, drop those into your email template on the right, and then customize with your own imagery and your own text. Event management is also a key. We know lots of branches will do events for various things to try to bring awareness and to try to bring in new customers. Everything you need to plan and manage events is all here in BPM Online as well. Loyalty programs, that's a new capability for us in the last couple of years. We're really excited about this, especially for banking, understanding things like loyalty points and frequency and all of that is available here. Collaboration tools to be able to communicate behind the scenes about a particular customer need or marketing need. All of this is built directly into the marketing application, and of course analytics on everything that you're doing. So really robust capabilities around CRM to help you go from marketing and sales to supporting customers on an ongoing basis, and really proud of our application, but also our partnership with Techwave and their ability and expertise in CRM and financial inclusion to manage this. So Sundar, we've gone through the slides. I wonder if you wanted to say a few words to wrap up here. We're at the top of the hour, so just about out of time.
It's very interesting, Matt. I think we have covered quite a lot of aspects, and what we covered in terms of financial inclusions. Most interesting point is on the business process point, where there is a major challenge in terms of financial inclusions, where we have to establish a process across various stakeholders, various agents, and it was well dealt with. And we also talked about the technology, how it can be provided to the agents in terms of the tablet or mobile devices, and where they can operate the transactions smoothly from end to end. Very interesting.
Yeah, very good. Well, thank you everyone for attending. Certainly happy to answer any additional questions. You can email Sundar and he can get in contact with me, and we're happy to address any specific technical questions about BPM Online or any of the other things that you saw today.
Yeah, thank you, Matt and Sundar, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. If you have any other questions, please contact to the desired contact information, which is displayed here. Once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a link to view a recording of today's webinar within 24 to 48 hours. And on behalf of Techwave and our presenters, thank you for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.